You want to learn how to trade and learn from the best traders all over the world? Well, you came to the right place. TheBestTraders.com is your #1 source for answers to the many journeys traders have gone through into becoming a profitable trader. Experienced futures trader, the Pivot King, Stephen Marcantonio, sits down with many of the best traders around the world. Now, here's your host, Stephen Marcantonio, the Pivot King.
Welcome to the first episode of TheBestTraders.com podcast. I know that I should have been starting this podcast a couple of months back, guys, but I'm sorry. The development of the forum on the website, like I said, I want it to be the best forum online, which it already is, but I want it better. But I'm very excited to have my first episode with my brother Joseph Marcantonio, who has taught me a lot in being my older brother. He's taught me a lot in my younger years, especially with regards to real estate. And that's why I really wanted the first episode with regards to real estate, because I do see it as very beneficial to have in your portfolio. As he'll talk about it, he's much more knowledgeable with real estate than me. He's majority shareholder, and he's definitely a smart, very smart when it comes to real estate, especially residential and commercial space. So I'd like to welcome Joseph. Joe, are you there?
Hi there. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Joe, for being on. Like I said, I wanted you to be a part of the first, the first episode. It's better to have a family member being part of this, the first episode, than anybody else. And I thank you for being on, Joe. So, guys, just to let you know, there's no written questions here. This is just, the top of our heads. I don't have anything written down. I'm just going to ask questions, and hopefully I cover questions that a lot of people listening that want to get into real estate, where my brother Joe can guide you and where to start. And this is not just for the newcomer that wants to get into real estate. This is for people that have existing real estate portfolios as well. So this is going to be a good podcast, and it's definitely going to be something that you could build and work towards, especially if you're a lot younger, moving forward. Because as my brother will tell you, this is the first generation. Our parents weren't rich. My father worked in a factory. My mom cleaned houses. We're not a poor family. We're a medium income family, but real estate took it to another level. And where I'm basically on the investment side and the trading side, my brothers are on the real estate side. So it's a good portfolio with combined for all three of us, because I do have another brother, Dave, which is a very, very smart guy as well. And we helped each other out. We did this on our own. No one taught us this. No one taught my brother Joe real estate. He learned on his own, and he'll be shedding some light on that. So, Joe, where do you want to start? What would you like to
Well, what I'd like to start is really what most people have similar questions that have asked me throughout my personal and business career is, how did you start? So if I get into how this whole trilogy began with real estate, and it started off by me building equity and taking the money that I made from working as an engineer and trading stocks. So early on, I would make approximately anywhere from 20 to 30K on stocks every, I'd say, 1.5 months. I would build that equity up, and I was putting it away in certain assets to pull upon when required. So, for instance, the key point here is that you have to build equity. And once you get that equity, I diversified into real estate. So we started to buy small homes. While we started to buy some of these single dwelling family residents, when you start getting up into higher numbers, it becomes a little bit more difficult to manage, because some of these properties are dispersed amongst different parts of the city. So from there, I had a friend of mine who owned a real estate firm, who mentioned that he had some apartment buildings for sale. And the first apartment building was in downtown Toronto. It was approximately 100 units. And that was the first catalyst from moving from taking money from my employment as an engineer, a computer engineer, from taking revenue and income that was coming from stock trading. And we combined that and put it into individual houses. And from the individual houses, we sold and we purchased our first 100 unit apartment building. So that was the first catalyst of what transpired.
Well, I remember that, and you were the one pushing for that, which I thank you for. Uh, that was a spectacular investment and still is.
Yeah, we
Very good investment,
we
actually.
we we purchased that, Steve,
Yeah, I know.
for I believe it
Unbelievable.
was 6.3 million.
I don't think we'll ever get that price. I don't
Yeah,
think
and
we'd ever
it's
find that opportunity again.
yeah.
Wow.
So well,
Anyways,
right
that
now
was, yeah,
it's worth just over
it,
25 mil from
yeah.
what we've been advised. So that was a very good
That's,
investment, actually.
that's probably one of the best ones out of them all. That was a very good one. But
Good.
wow. Uh, yeah, that was a good one, Joe. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
Uh, but what I was going to say is, Joe, from the beginning, because you know me, I don't like to own. I think a house is not an investment. I know some people disagree with me,
Hmm.
but uh, if you were to go back in time, such as we discussed even earlier, what would be one of the things that you would have changed back in the day, where what you know now, and you wish that someone such as yourself that's on this podcast to help other people get into real estate, what would you have wished that you knew back then that would uh, that would have got you into real estate sooner? Like
Well,
maybe not a house, maybe because you did have that down payment. You had a lot of cash. I remember we we could have got a building a lot earlier. Like we went
well,
to the housing complex because I think you I know you decided to move to the residential 100 unit plus buildings, which was a
so
remarkable, which is unbelievable because no one, you advised this yourself. Like I know because
hmm,
you're the one who got me into it, which was an eye opener. This is not someone someone told you to do. You ended up seeing it for yourself and got rid of the house. Remember the house you had? You got rid
no,
of
I
it. We went
agree.
right in.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't buy a house ever again. At least I don't. Like
No, no. So
exactly.
what I would have done, and this is what I would suggest to everyone, is I would have got into the real estate business a lot sooner, and I would have diversified a lot sooner, and I would have surrounded myself with wise people who understand the business a lot sooner. So if I turn back the clock, if I would have done those three things, if I would have diversified sooner, if I would have invested in real estate sooner and surrounded myself with wise people who understood the business, uh, our portfolio would have been much more larger and much more lucrative. And that's the issue from all the people that I've met. And I've met people not so much outside of North America, but I mean, just a tremendous amount of people in Canada and in the States, just in my business dealings. Uh, a lot of people seem to be weary of getting into real estate and multi-dwelling real estate. So units that are and don't be shy with the 100 and above units, but even small triplexes, sixplex, 20plex. A lot of people shy away from that because they believe that it's too much work or
Mhm.
it's too much trouble, and it's all a falsity. It's not true. Everything that leads to making money typically is going to take hard work. So to answer your question, Steve, I would have gotten involved in it a lot sooner. I would have sought people that understand the business to provide guidance, and that's what I would have changed.
Yeah, we talked about that, and it's just unbelievable the portfolio that you built and ongoing. Right now, I think we're what at 600 units, 750. It's
Yeah,
up
and
there.
growing,
Yeah.
and that to answer your second question, Steve, about when you mentioned that owning your own personal home is a bad investment. Yeah, that's there are so many podcasts out there. There are so many generational wealthy people that have had their parents or their parents provide generational wealth through trusts that have given them the ability to expand their business dealings. But when you're working with an individual that whatever their job may be or what their family income will be, and here's somebody talking about, yeah, I just purchased a 200 unit building. Uh, it's not realistic. So uh, I deal with a lot of these people, and they're very smart. However, they're not explaining the root. It's just like when you're providing guidance on stock trading, Steve. There are some basic fundamentals. No matter how good of a trader you are, you have to have these basic fundamentals. And what I'm trying to explain in answer to your question is if you're a person who has a regular job or whatever, or a family income, you can get into real estate. And what I would do is I would buy maybe a triplex or a duplex, rent a part of it out.
And then live on the top. You can even live in there, and
Exactly.
then rent, and it pays. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Build
Whereas a
equity.
house, yeah,
Exactly. Build your equity, build your experience, build your relationship with the banker that you're dealing with so that when you want to buy your second property, you can say, hey, look, I have had this property for this many years. Uh, Look at the income that it's generating. Look how it's being managed. They're going to see that you are, you've gained experience, and then they'll give you the opportunity to borrow money. It was the same one building that you and I and our brother Dave purchased. I remember one of the banks. It was from Desjardins, and it was in a rough area in the city. And they were thinking of getting out of the business for that particular area. And I remember having a meeting with the manager who was from Vancouver, but he flew down into Toronto. And I went and met him, and I was able to convince him to take a leap of faith with us to extend the mortgage on this property. And
I remember
obviously
that.
he's happy because
Yeah,
he made money and we
of
made
course.
money. But it, that's my answer to you is with respects to owning your own home. Yes, you should own your own home. If you're if you're in that particular situation that you don't have hundreds or millions of dollars to slap down on a building, how are you going to build experience? How are you going to build equity? How are you going to build trust within a bank? You have to start somewhere. So
That's, I think, a lot of the people listening, like if they want to get into real estate and diverse, which I suggest, that you even have Goldman Sachs buying apartment buildings. JP Morgan bought apartment buildings. I know in 2014 they loaded up. You can even search through Google. They have a portfolio. Hedge funds, uh, the biggest ones, they have 25, 30%, some even more, some even 40% with regard are invested in real estate. So I personally think real estate, it's part of my portfolio since you manage everything and you're doing a fantastic job. Uh, I think everybody should have part of their portfolio in real estate. It's passive income. I don't think you'll be able to. It's having that. Of course, you're going to go through your ups and downs and manage the building. It takes a lot of work and a lot of managing. But I think the risk, and there's not that much risk compared to investing. it's a passive income. I see it as uh, income that's coming to you every month, and it's the definition of being rich. Actually, is once these are paid off, you have a steady income coming to you, where you don't have to do anything, and money just comes to you. But it's that building up to that uh, portfolio and growing that gets you there. Now, my question to you, Joe, is I know that you dealt with the banks a lot. If someone wanted to, if someone has cash, they have cash to put down. Let's say they have
Yes.
200K, let's just say. And I know that housing right now is up there and buildings are up there, but let's say they have the amount of money to buy a Templex, let's say, even if they want a 30 unit, let's just say. How do they present that to the bank? What does the bank look for? How do they present that to uh, what do the banks look for? Because I think a lot of people are confused. They all think it's all about credit, but the bank looks for, I guess, the cost of building. You have to do your numbers. Is this something where someone would have to hire someone to put that paperwork together? Or is this something that someone that could do that themselves and present the portfolio to the bank to get the money?
You would definitely, if you want to be successful in presenting your proposal to a bank to lend you the money, you'd need some guidance. And there's a lot of books out there, but each situation is different. So my opinion, my experienced opinion is you should consult with somebody who has experience in this. If you fall back to the beginning of our interview here, I mentioned the three things that I would have changed. And what were they? One of them was I would surround myself and seek guidance from people that understand the business and who are wise. It's no different than the service that you're providing as an example on your the best traders dot service that you provide. And the reason is you have a lot of experienced traders, but everyone who's experienced, you can always learn something from a person who has knowledge, who has applied that knowledge, and who has gained wisdom. So that's my answer. They should consult with somebody who has experience with dealing with a bank in trying to get or attempting to get a loan to purchase a asset, a brick and mortar asset, either commercial or industrial or residential apartment building.
And that would gain the relationship with the bank, whoever you're speaking with. I know that you speak to them very well and they really like you, which is good because you show that you can make money with everything. Like you did a total 360 with the first building. I've never seen guys listening. I never seen my brother renovates units. You will see paint on his jeans. He doesn't have to do it, but he does it because he enjoys it. And I want to go on to the next question is, do you look for undervalued buildings? Because the first one that you put your eyes on, I remember you saying you wanted a building where you wanted to do the work. And I remember we got the inspection for the roof, and we got because you're Joe. Well, this is unbelievable because my brother's actually a handyman. He's a plumber. He's an electrician. He's a computer genius. So he's talented in many different things. And by the way, he's a martial artist, which I'm sure helped him in his. And my nephew is. That's another thing, Joe. When I seen Matthew go with those older men in
Oh
martial
yeah, the
arts,
Krav
me and
Maga.
my wife were talking about it yesterday. Like that's the best. Anyways, we're getting off topic here. I was just so shocked when I went to go see uh, my nephew there with the youngest being them all and learning martial arts from a lot of people, even double, twice his age. So I think he could pick that up quite fast by, sparring with people twice his age. But what I wanted to say is the first time, Joe, the first building we got there, I know that you wanted to focus on a building that needed work. And
In
is
this in
moving.
this marketplace now, Steve, to answer your question, is you mentioned earlier on that there's some big REITs and
Yes.
some big financial institutions getting into the apartment building in a commercial space, not only in North America, but globally.
Which is hard to find
So
the building right now.
exactly.
They're
So
scooping them up.
there's a warfare. It's just like when you're trading your future contracts, you are trading against big boys.
Yeah.
Well, the real estate market now, at least in the areas that we have our portfolio in, Steve, we are competing with very large companies. So the only way we scoop up assets is through knowing a real estate agent or having that relationship and buying certain assets that are undervalued,
That's right.
that require hands-on experience. So uh, buildings that are fully turnkey, uh, uh, they're fully renovated, the state-of-the-art property grounds, we're not going to be looked at. And to some, having 700 units is large. In the apartment building business, 700 units is not large. So I don't consider myself of having a lot of units. I've met some folks that have 20,000 units, and there's
Yeah.
or just
Big
over
boy.
15,000. So um, that's when you're starting to get large.
Yeah.
I,
20,000 units, Joey. That's insane. But I
but
don't.
those, so the latest purchase that we did, as you know, Steve, was in Leamington, Ontario. Not a lot of people, know of that, but in Ontario, uh, in Canada, specifically, for those that are listening that are outside of Canada, uh, Leamington, Ontario is where a big percentage of the food is grown for this country. So uh, a good part of tomatoes, soya beans, peppers, things like that, cucumbers are grown. It's the southernmost part of this area, but it's also one of the largest now areas of where cannabis is grown. So as an example, why we purchased now 4 buildings we have, Steve, in Leamington, as you know, we purchased it for this reason. One, all the food, a big portion of the food, I should say, let me rephrase, is grown in that city. And now it's growing a massive amount of cannabis because cannabis is now being legalized in Canada and in several of the provinces. So a lot of immigration from surrounding countries and are having employees, including people that live within Canada, are working in this area. So to answer your question, we look at undervalued properties, but we also look at properties where there is future potential because of the growth of tenancy. So I brought up an example, Leamington, the a big city where it grows a lot of the food for the province, and a massive amount of cannabis is being grown there, which is driving the apartment building business demand.
Yeah.
So
Another smart move. One question, Joe. Can you buy a residential building and lose on your investment?
yes, you can. And how you would lose is not managing it properly, not being very astute on where you purchase your supplies, who you're dealing with to provide you services for, whatever those services may be for your boiler systems, your elevator systems, your fire security, excuse me, your employment costs, your rent collection procedures, how you are handling issues in court.
Mhm.
Now, the risk of that is lower than, for instance, some of the other industries that provide revenue, like, I don't know, a donut shop, a clothing store, an ice cream store, a manufacturing plant, trading stocks. the, I apologize, everyone. There's risks to all of that, but if you have a sound management understanding, you can mitigate your risks. Again, I go back to the beginning of our call, Steve. What would I change differently? One of the points, again, I would surround myself with knowledgeable people who have the knowledge and the wisdom of being in this type of business.
Hmm. Which we didn't have. You were the knowledge.
So how did
uh,
we learn? We learned from mistakes,
that's right.
no different than you trading stocks
That's right.
and losing or
That's
making a
exactly
bad
it.
investment. It's the
Hmm.
same. It's the same methodology. And you brought up martial arts as an example. You can have people in martial arts that have trained for 15 years, but if they've not been in any real combat hand-to-hand situations,
They'll
then
lose. Yeah.
the you know the hand-to-hand combat or the fight, for lack of a better word, may may not turn out positively for the guy who's trained martial arts because he's never had really any combat
That's right.
experience.
It's a different game when you're actually in the real, when it's
Yeah, you got
real.
to learn from your mistakes, or
That's right.
you learn from. You can
Uh,
learn from your mistakes, but it's
and
good
other
to learn
people's.
from other people's
That's right.
mistakes.
You'll get there much quicker. But like I said, Joe, we didn't come from a wealthy family like uh, other people have. Which majority, this is a first generation where you brought it to another level, and I thank you for that. And besides that, what else would you want to talk about, Joe, with regards to really? I guess we can talk about the benefit of write-offs and how someone getting into real estate uh, could help with. Well, definitely, it's a passive income. It's good for your kids. It helps your
Yep.
kids enormously when, especially when they're older, and it gets them into building up the portfolio even more. I guess that's how these guys got to what twenty
Yeah.
thousand apartments, Joe. I don't think they did it in their
Excuse me.
first generation. I think that would be multiple generations. No, like how do you?
Well, if you let's lose some people that maybe their names are very well known. Let's use as an example Trump's name or his son-in-law that married his daughter. He uh,
Yeah, he just
he
bought
and
a
his family, yeah, he purchased. I think it was his. He has
400,
20. Yeah, but I think he has 20 or 25,000 units now in total. His portfolio.
450 million he spent.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah,
Yes.
I think it was that. It's half a billion.
And Trump, it's all, it's through generational wealth. They
It
had the
is.
hundreds of millions and
Yeah,
they invested it in real
real
estate.
estate.
But speak at more of a realistic level, what someone needs to do is understand that by getting into real estate doesn't mean that that should be your full-time job. That's something that you would have to decide with yourself and your family. But uh, what I can say is there are several areas of where you not only make income immediately, but as you said, more of a passive income. There's write-offs. You have somebody paying your mortgage off. You have the capital appreciation of the asset. You're able to borrow from the asset and take that money out and put it somewhere else
And
via
leverage it. Yeah.
exactly leveraging because the banks see that it's a real asset. There's abilities, as Steve said, to write off numerous areas of write-offs.
It's even a
There's
hedge on
also
inflation too.
very big,
It's
right?
probably one of
There's
the
the
best
ability.
investments.
Yeah, there's the ability to the governments and cities. They always have grants for you to help improve your property, from groundskeeping to roofs to internal and external renovations to lighting and cooling. There's all sorts of grants that the cities and provinces provide um, investors to grow their portfolio or to maintain their portfolio. Uh, Not only that, you have the ability to create a trust, and you can put some of these assets in the trust where you can pull dividends out, you can pull cash out. A big part of rent collection, a lot of the times, is cash. There's so many other advantages. It's the pleasure of being in the business, the pleasure of helping folks that may need residency, and sometimes you're helping families out uh, that need the help.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, there's and it's just the stability of the business. If investing in certain cities where growth is growing, the demographics, the population, the immigration of external folks coming into your city, it's a proven business. One of the oldest businesses is providing lodging to uh, people.
Yeah.
So
And with Canada,
that's
the amount of immigration that's coming to Canada, it's unbelievable. Because
quite
I
large,
think it's a tight market. People are finding a very hard time to find a place to live,
very hard.
which helps. Which apartment buildings are one of the key, and I guess that's why it skyrocketed, Joel. Right? The demand is through the roof,
Well,
but
if,
that's why
if
they're
you
being scooped up too
yeah,
by
if
these.
you if you just do a simple search and understand where somebody lives based on the amount of income they make. So let's say somebody's making 30 grand, $30,000, 50,000, 75, 100, 200, 400, a million, several millions, 20, 30, 50 million. Then you get into the hundreds of millions. You will see that once you start getting higher and higher in the number with respects to the amount of income that somebody has or their net worth, high net worth folks have real estate, either
Absolutely.
commercial or residential. And there's a reason, because it's profitable and it's stable. So to everyone that is thinking of getting into real
And
estate,
it's a
you don't,
physical it's an asset.
yeah, yeah,
It's
you
something
don't,
tangible.
you don't have to, you don't have to think, well, I'm hearing this gentleman speak and he's got 700 units, and I'm hearing some other guys talking about and he owns 1,000 units. Don't worry about them. Get into real estate, have a few properties, start off with one property, and grow from there. If you need assistance, you can reach out to Steve. Steve can provide my contact information. I'd be more than happy to guide you in navigating the real estate uh, industry. But if we go back to the beginning of the call and you ask me what would I change differently, what would I change differently is I would have got in it. I would have got into real estate sooner.
Hmm.
That's I. So to
Joe, we were
answer
even
your
talking about
question,
doing a REIT. Remember, like we could set the.
yeah.
You've managed. You know these incidents. Like, the guys, I'm being honest. The amount of work and the return that my brother does when he purchases, I just can't believe he does so much research and turns it around. And
We've
and
done
put it
well.
this way, the banks can't even believe the amount of cash flow of turning the way he turned each building around is just genius. It's
Well, yeah,
unbelievable. Well, I
that's a
guess
good
that
point you
helps
brought
being a
up.
being a
That's,
handyman helps, Joe, because that you save costs on the electrician. That's the other thing is if you're an actual handyman and could do plumbing, electrical, uh, painting, renovating, and it's not just about that. It's about getting the supplies too, because you always like my brother goes and makes deals with Home Depot, and he actually makes and that sort of stuff. Cutting those pennies, they add up at the end of the year, and presenting that to the bank too. They look at you and they say that this guy's turning this around, and not just one but two but three. And I think, Joe, that has a lot to do with gaining a personal relationship with the bank, doesn't it? Don't
it
they, when they
does,
see
but
that, they're like, wow.
you have to build that relationship up. But you also again got to seek wisdom from smarter guys. I read an article. Jay Z, one of the first, I guess, the first billionaire rap artist. He had an interview with a very successful investor, the guy that's posted to your screen, Steve, your one of your monitors.
Uh-huh. Oh,
And
Buffett.
yes,
Wow.
so he had I understand, a meeting with him, and just trying to find out how he should grow his portfolio. This is many, many years ago. And I'm just basing it on an article I read. But what I found interesting, what Buffett said was, never work for somebody else, work for yourself.
He's right.
So he started
And invest in
explaining.
yourself. And invest in yourself.
Yeah, and he started opening up his own label, become his own distributor. Why? Why would he do that? It's the same thing with me understanding about how a boiler works. That this maybe a person who owns 20,000 units, they don't get into this level. For me, I'd like to know how things work, so that when I'm dealing with people, or I'm dealing with an employee who's
That's
dealing
well
with
said,
an
Joe. You're
organization.
basically investing in yourself to do everything yourself.
And you said it yourself,
And it
Steve.
keeps you, and you
I
love it too. I know you love it.
That too, yeah. But I've
I know
seen
you
you.
enjoy it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of your posts, Steve, that say, listen, if you're coming to trade stocks and you want me to tell you when to hit the buy button, when to hit the sell button, where to put your
Yeah.
stop,
This is not for you.
then
Yeah.
you're in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to have your own
I think
knowledge.
you're
You
right
have
around there,
to.
Joe. And I think a lot of people want to be spoon fed. I think a lot of people, especially the younger generation now, they all want to be told, spoon fed. And I
Well,
think that's why a lot of people that have high grades in the younger years, they don't do very well in life later on.
well,
There's actually stats.
yeah,
A lot of
it's
people
one
that
thing.
drop out of high school, they own all these buildings. Not to say you did, you went
Well,
to, but a lot of the wealthy people these days, they didn't even finish college. They didn't. It's look at all the CEOs of the top tech companies. None of them finished
yeah,
university.
they took calculated risks. The
Yeah,
point I'm trying to make is, if when not if when you get involved in a real estate purchase, you should understand the certain parts of what you're getting involved in, so that if you're being taken, if you're not being taken. And that's why I brought up the point with the trading of stocks. Like, you can't just. It's one thing to get advice from somebody, sound advice, but you have to start growing your own internal knowledge,
that's right.
practical knowledge.
That's
And the
right.
only way to do that is you got to get involved. You got to get in. You have to start somewhere.
You got to spend time and sacrifice a lot of hours, like you did.
Yeah, so
You know,
to that point, this point, I actually want to bring up to everyone who is getting any advice or knowledge from this podcast or not. But when you start getting into real estate, say your portfolio is one house, you now want two houses. Two houses, you want 30 units. 30 units, you want 50 units. It's no different if you have a stock portfolio of 100 grand, you want that 100 grand to be 500 grand. Like, you want to drive your portfolio, you want to grow, you want to get bigger. The point I'm trying to make is, a lot of people are that I've met continuously chase the dollar, and they're doing very well, and then their family life suffers.
they're not
And it's
happy.
you as an yeah, it's exactly you as an individual. I know a few very wealthy people that could care less uh, about their personal life, and could care less if they're divorced, what's
Yeah,
happening with their kids, because their mindset, and I'm not saying it's wrong, their mindset is, I want to make loads of cash.
they get addicted to it. Whereas
Exactly.
I know you're a family man. I know that 100%. Just to let you
So,
guys know, my brother takes his son everywhere, goes to
so
every
thank.
game. I know, Joe. It's you have to balance it, right? It's life, right?
But to
There's a
each his own,
balance.
right?
That's
To
right.
each his own. Some may say, everyone has their own personal belief. My belief is, I'm very well off. I could be a lot more well off, but my balance is different than somebody else.
I'm the same
What I
way.
have seen, and this is a fact. What
Joe,
and
like I trade the open. I make what I
Yeah,
make on the trade. And everybody knows this on my forum. I'll leave. See people on the forum like, where are you going? I'm like, guys,
yeah.
I got to enjoy life too. What do you think? You're going to look at the monitors 12 hours a day? You have
So
to enjoy what you do. But the time and sacrifice that you put into doing what you know now, such as me trading, the amount of hours, the amount of sacrifice, the amount of pain, the amount of money I lost, and the amount now I'm being profitable, but I had to lose. It's like I never, no one taught me this. In fact, the people that I say, everybody knows this in the forum. Majority of the people that are out there that you hear on Bloomberg, CNBC, they don't even trade. They don't. And a trader knows this. And we talk about this in the forum. You have a lot of these guys that pretend that they're somebody, but they're not. And a trader knows this. And I think there's a lot of false uh, actors out there. And that's what got me into trouble back then. Joe, you know what I'm talking about. Remember the
Yeah,
first
I
one?
do.
I don't want to mention his name, but this is someone that
Yeah.
everybody looked up to. And he, to this day, I'll say it right now, he was one of the worst. Now that I know now, he's probably one of the worst traders I've ever seen in my life. Yet everybody worshiped this guy, and he's still out there, which I can't
Hmm.
believe. So that got me to open my eyes, Joe. And as you well know, and I told you, I'll talk to you about this, that led me into something investing in myself. And that's why when you say invest in yourself, I started to open up my eyes and say, why don't I listen to these guys? Why don't I listen to myself and learn this myself instead of following someone? And as soon as I started to reverse that, Joe, and as you well know,
Hmm.
it started going into another level. And so that point that you make in to invest in yourself is probably the best advice that anybody can get. Well, in, and that goes with real estate trading. It goes with everything in life. If you want to become whatever, a doctor, it all takes time and sacrifice, but you need balance in your life, and that
You do.
balance of
So
being with your wife
if
and family
exactly,
helps as well.
if so, in summary, if somebody is interested in getting into real estate, my suggestion to you is you are building wealth from possibly a job that you work at, a career. You're building some wealth from investments that you are doing with stock trading. Take a portion of that money and put it on a home, a house, or a small residential multi-dwelling unit. Depending on how much money you have, will depend on the size. You need to know where you're going to purchase this asset. People always say location, location, location. Yeah, they're right, but you may not be able to afford something in the downtown core. So you may want to go out to the outskirts of whatever city that you're, or maybe not the outskirts, uh, maybe a tertiary. So you have a secondary outskirt area, maybe a tertiary area. Uh, Understanding how would you choose that? Find out if they're building a train route through that way. Try to
Yeah.
find out if they're expanding the roads.
Do your
I'll bring
research.
yeah, I'll build an example. We purchased a building in the outside of the of a city where we noticed that the highways were being expanded from a 2-lane to a 4-lane on either side. So now it's an 8-lane highway. Why? Because there was so much transportation
That's right.
going between Windsor, U.S., Detroit into Toronto. So we were buying along this path. We started to buy property in Leamington, as an example. Why would I buy something? I didn't even know where Leamington was
Me
until we
neither.
started. I was like, Leamington, where's Leamington now? But now I understand. Well, that's where a tremendous amount of cannabis, where weed is being grown for all of Canada.
A lot of
So
employees
lot of employees, which means they all need to live
to
somewhere.
live.
And not every,
That's
you
right.
know, not everybody has money to go out and buy a fancy condo. And if you buy in a fancy condo that's only 600 square feet, where are you going to put your kids?
You're an
So you
idiot.
got to, yeah, you got to,
Yeah.
right?
That's not an
So,
investment to me, boy. No.
so fine, start thinking where you want to invest. You don't have to you don't have to buy something big from the beginning. And then when you buy something, it's just like you were buying a home. And if you need advice, contact Steve or you can contact me. I'll provide you some basic guidance. You got to look at the numbers. You don't want to get into something that is going to put you further in the hole or is going to be a risk to you. I'll compare it to your mindset. Your audience are stock traders. If you're buying a stock, you know how they have those sayings, you can catch a falling knife, or
Hmm.
you want to keep investing so you can lower your average. It's the same thing in real estate. If you're going to do that, you better be 100% sure, or you're going
Yeah.
to lose your shirt.
It's a way to blow up your account. Yeah.
So it's the same thing with real estate. You got to know what you're buying. You got to look at the numbers. And then the banks that you're getting the money from, they might not agree with you. You have to know your numbers very well to say, no, 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 no. What your assumption, I appreciate your opinion. It's a valid opinion, but this is what you're not seeing. You got to be able to convince them that the where you're wanting to buy an asset is not only good for you, it's good for the banks. And that's why the banks are making billions and billions of dollars every quarter. They're
Yep.
making billions and billions of dollars every quarter because they're lending out their money.
Hmm.
So you got to know what you're buying. You got to know if what you got to understand when you purchase an asset, what's your return of investment? Is it does the asphalt need to be done? Okay, so if the asphalt needs to be done on a property, is this person charging for asphalt? I mean, is this person charging for parking? Are they charging the right amount for parking? I've seen buildings that are this building that we just purchased, Steve, our portfolio. I know a lot of it. You're an investor, but you allow me to manage that and just and sort of provide you the information.
Hmm.
But Steve, we purchased a building, you and I, and our brother in Hamilton. It was a mass over 3 acres long, and they're not even they weren't even charging parking.
Yeah.
Like how, like
That's another thing.
so
I remember when you did that with the first one. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. That's just
yeah.
a
So
way to
so
generate
here you
income.
go.
That was a
We got
classic move.
this is
Increased so much.
a perfect example what Steve is saying. We have 100, just an example. It's over 100 units, but just say it's 100 units. Each parking spot is like 70, $80. So you're getting paid every month.
That's right.
Everybody who's got a car, $80
Adds
for
up.
parking spots. Now, think about how much revenue you're going to get just from a parking spot.
And
So
the
this thing
laundry. Remember the
in
laundry? We
the
did
yeah,
our own.
everything lawn.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of
Good
things we do.
moves.
You put. I mean, to some, again, if you have 30,000 units, yes, I agree. You're on a different playing level. You're on you're on a different level, but the principles are the same.
Joe, I don't even see
You're
how you can manage 30,000. It's just that's insane.
well, well, they
That's
have property managers,
yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, for the audience, for our audience that want to get into purchasing maybe they want to purchase a building that's 50 units, 100, 150 units, depending on the size of your audience, is the what they have as reserved cash flows. I definitely would get into real estate. You may not want to get into having hundreds of units, but you may just want a few units. There's great ways, as we discussed, on how to write off your investments, how to build generational wealth for your family. You put
Yeah.
the asset in a trust. It's a
Yeah.
tax shelter.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
it's
Protects you.
protection against if
Lawsuits, anything.
creditors, anything like that. So just understand what you want to buy, where you're buying, align yourself with people that understand the business so they can help you or provide you some sort of input in purchasing the asset. And then the next part, once you purchase the asset, you got to manage it. And to manage it, you got to manage it smartly. You got to make sure that you're minding the store. Uh, Decisions that you make, you got to do them calculated. There's tactical decisions, but there's also strategic decisions. So you got to treat it like a business. Again, I relate this back to the business that your audience is in. That's trading stocks. If you're a stock trader, you got to treat it like you're running your own business. You got to treat it like it's a career. This isn't just, you waking up every day. And I know you've pitched this, but it's the same thing, Steve, with real estate. You got to treat it properly.
Yeah, of
You got to
course.
you got to treat it like a
Takes a lot of work.
business.
I know that you're there every day. Like I said, you don't have to be doing like I know you enjoy it, and it's definitely an eye opener and you taught me a lot with regards to this, and I'm still learning. And I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, I am.
But you learned quick. You made some very good moves, and uh, I think you gave a huge amount of knowledge in this podcast, because this is coming from someone who started from scratch. Joe, you weren't rich in the beginning. We weren't past money.
Oh,
So this is someone who did it on real estate, who got into commercial real estate on his own, and brought me and my other brother along for the ride. So having someone do that is probably someone that I would want to listen to more than someone else that uh, kind of got it handed to them. Because I'll tell you, learning what you've learned from ground up is valuable information, and were you willing to share it, which we discussed. That I think it's a good way to help other people, because we wish we would have got that help. Like this podcast, imagine us listening to it, Joe, all those years back, right? uh, it all takes, this podcast could change someone and say, you know what, I have this money aside, I want to put it to work. And 10 years down the road, they could look back on this podcast, for example, and say, you know what, I listened to this podcast, and it's these guys that gave me a kick in the butt that made me do this. And uh, thank you, Joe, for coming on the show. And yeah, I think you gave a wealth of knowledge here for people that want to get into real estate, which I think they should. A part of their portfolio should be in real estate. There's a reason why Goldman and all these big hedge funds do it. So, do what the big boys do, because they do their homework, and it's good to follow in their footsteps. Joe, I'd like to thank you once again for being the first episode of TheBestTraders.com. And just to let everybody know, I have a lot of people lined up for uh, plenty of more episodes. The second episode is going to be with a personal good friend of mine, Anthony, who is in the marijuana industry. And he is a very big part of Huge, the Canadian venture stock, HUGE, which broke records of the most shares traded ever on the Canadian Venture Exchange. Just to show you, that's why they called it huge. So cannabis, I know a lot of people are investing in cannabis, especially on the Toronto Stock Exchange in the Canadian Venture. So the next episode is going to be definitely another listen to with people. I know a lot of people are investing in marijuana stocks. So Anthony is going to shed some light on what he looks for uh, with regards to marijuana stocks, considering that he brought huge to the Canadian venture. So he knows a lot with regards to the marijuana industry and how it's going to grow in the next coming years. But sorry, Joe, I rambled on there a little bit. I wanted to talk about the next episode. But once again, if you guys want to get in contact with Joe, you can contact me at info@thebesttraders.com, and just put uh, um, with regards to the podcast with Joseph, I have these questions, and I'll relay that to my brother. And my brother, like he said, he's willing to help the people that are willing to get into this industry. I think by giving back to other people. I know my brother's very spiritual, Joel. You know that, which is
yes,
good,
sir.
uh, which is very good, because I am too. And we feel that giving back to the public, especially with people that want to get into real estate, and we feel that giving back helps, just it helps us, because positive energy is a lot more powerful than negative energy. So I know my brother is very positive, such as myself, and we just wanted to give back to the community. And if you have any questions, email info@thebesttraders.com. Let me know that it has to do with the podcast, and I'll relay that to my brother, and we'll get in touch with you. Other than that, Joe, do you want to add anything else, or do you want to wrap this
No,
up?
I would just end off by saying thank you for inviting me. It was
Well,
an
Joe,
honor. I actually was pretty
that's why you're the
excited,
first one. That's why you're the first one.
and
Anyways, it's going to be a big one too.
I wish everyone all the best. Be happy, and if you have any questions, as Steve said, I'll be happy to assist you. And enjoy your day.
Joel, thank you very much for being on, and have yourself a great day from Europe. I'll be coming to Toronto to see you very soon. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Joel, once again, thank you for uh, coming on my first episode. And hopefully, you guys enjoyed the first episode. It's only going to get better. Take care, guys, and see you in the markets. Bye bye.